Steve Dotto here with Gillian Shaw. I guess we should call this segment Steve and Gillian, or Shaw and Dotto, or Dotto and Shaw. What do you say?
Dotto Shaw.
Dotto Shaw? You're going to give me top billing, are you?
Yeah. Well, we're going alphabetically, Steve.
Okay, well, good enough, and we can do the alphabet. Gillian, the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference kicked off today. Annually the biggest event in the Apple world, actually. I guess since they kind of pulled out of all the other trade shows. There's just huge buzz over it, lots of expectations. Did you think it met people's expectation?
Well, as we talked about, Steve, a lot of this was expected. It's not all huge surprises, but no, Apple came through as promised with, upgrades, changes, new software, hardware. I think it would. I think it would meet expectations.
I think they're just trickling things out a little bit. I think there are some people are going to be disappointed with a few of the omissions, things that didn't happen. For me, most notably, there was absolutely nothing on Apple TV, which surprised the heck out of me.
I know, and we've heard all kinds of rumors about the Apple TV is in the process of being made. It's coming any day, and this would have been the time that you would to hear something about that.
Yeah, and Apple made no announcement. However, what they did do, I guess the biggest story is the MacBook, the refresh of the MacBook lineup, and the addition of the next generation MacBook Pro, or NGMBP.
That is actually my favorite out of this announcement, Steve, because, trying to figure out between carrying a heavyweight laptop or a tablet or the MacBook Air or one of those Ultrabooks, the PC Ultrabooks, nothing is quite hitting the sweet spot that we need. And of course, it looks like Apple is trying to do that with much thinner, lighter, but full a computer that delivers everything that you need in a computer, and not just computer light.
So, in order of how they were released during the press conference, all with the new Ivy Bridge processor, which to me, speed upgrades are just a yawn. They don't really make much difference. We have a new 11-inch and a new 13-inch MacBook Air, both with Ivy Bridge, both with upgraded solid-state drives, both with the inclusion of USB 3, so faster input-output. That's going to be quite nice, and you can get up to now a 512-gigabyte solid-state drive. But the entry level still starts with a 64 gigabyte, which again, kind of yawn.
Well, at the same price point, we're talking about you're talking about the MacBook here, starting at $1,000 for the 11-inch, right?
Yeah, the MacBook Air, yeah.
I don't know what you think about this, Steve, but is interest kind of sort of waning for the Air in light of some of its shortcomings?
Because it's not, because people are expecting it to be a full-fledged computer, and it's really not. I don't know. I think a lot of people like the Air. I think that a lot of people choose the Air that get a lot out of their iPad, but just want a little bit more. I still think the Air's got a lot of room in the marketplace. I think it's going to do well. I think it's kind of disappointing that they didn't upgrade the display on it too. They didn't look at that possibility, but they did upgrade the camera to HD. The FaceTime camera is now 720p, so that's a big woohoo, I guess.
And yeah, it should be. They need to do that to keep up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But as good as that was, as is so often the case, Apple then drops the bombshell, which is this new NGMBP, the next generation MacBook Pro, and it is. What did Tim say? I got a quote here. You want to have a killer new display. You want to have architecture built for the future. You want it to be light. You want it to be unlike anything else. So Apple has completely gone back to the drawing board with the next generation MacBook Pro. It's a pretty interesting and pretty compelling and pretty expensive piece of hardware.
It's on my wish list for sure now, Steve. But it's going to take a little saving up to get this, because what are they starting at?
They're starting at $2,100. $2,199. That's the U.S. price. We haven't got Canadian pricing firm as of the time that we're recording this. But let's not talk about how much it costs. Let's talk about what's in it first of all.
Well, that's right. And is it worth it? It does deliver a lot. Everybody is using, of course, their laptop now instead of a desktop. Desktops are gone, except maybe if you happen to be unfortunate enough to sit in an office where they haven't caught on to the next century.
I'm talking to you here on a desktop,
you need a
woman.
laptop that does everything, that doesn't weigh, doesn't break your back to carry, that does everything you need with video, and to have a Retina display screen. That alone is a real selling point, I think.
Yeah, well, the Retina display is everything for this one. I mean, they have redesigned it. It's just 0.71 inches thick, so it's about the same width, same thickness as a MacBook Air. It's 4.2 pounds, which is a terrific weight for a notebook. I think it's weighty enough that that you can pick up your bag and know it's in it, but not so much it's gonna hurt your shoulder. But that Retina display, now they've launched it only with a 15.4 inch screen, which translates into 2880 by 1800 resolution, which is 200 pixels for every inch. That's about 4 times the resolution of its predecessor, which, I mean, I've always thought the Mac displays are pretty darn good. And this is
I know
4
that
times
is
the
a
resolution.
jump. That is a jump, and that's going to be pretty useful, particularly for everything that we do now that's so visual and graphics, photos, video. You're going to like that.
If you have looked at the Retina display on the MacBook, on the iPad, it does make the images pop. The blacks are blacker, the colors are more vibrant. And just to put it into perspective, the resolution is going to be more than double that of your high-definition TV that you have, your 50 or 60 or 70-inch high HD TV that's sitting in your living room that you're so impressed with. The resolution here is around double that.
That's right. Your HD TV is going to pale in comparison. But if you have an iPad, the 3rd generation iPad, you already know that. And it is. I have both the first iPad and then I skipped one and I have the 3rd. Real difference. You just look at it and see the difference, and it's so much fun to edit photos, do video. It's a great screen.
The rest of the technical breakdown, it ships in its base configuration with a 256 gigabyte solid state drive. You will not see a mechanical drive in this device. You can upgrade as much as a 768 gigabyte solid state drive, which is pretty darn huge. I upgraded to 128 gigabyte in my desktop that I'm working on here, and it's changed my life. I love that. 7 hours battery life. 30 days on standby, which is really pretty impressive. Battery
life is so important.
Yeah.
If you just don't have that. I mean, I have a PC laptop that has got a lamentably slow battery life without adding on that extra heavyweight battery. Again, just something that is necessary in the new laptops.
Now, as far as ports goes, it's got an SD card slot, which I'm actually surprised they included. I guess people still like to transfer data back and forth by SD cards. But I mean, so often now we're using Wi-Fi, we're using iCloud and all those other things. I'm actually surprised Apple used up the space to allow for an SD card. The rest of them,
there's still the sneaker net crowd, I guess, Steve.
But Apple's never catered. Apple's never kowtowed to that group. So it's surprising that it's in there. That's one that I don't quite get. They have an HDMI port, Thunderbolt, 2 USB 2 or 3 ports, one on either side. It's got a backlit keyboard, and the other feature is dual microphones, which I go, no, I don't care about.
Yeah.
So, but that price tag, $2,199. Is there still an appetite out there that people are going to spend the better part of $2,500 on a notebook?
Well, that's an interesting question, Steve, because, you can get notebooks for next to nothing. But then, what do you get? And the Apple, of course, it gears to the, both the Apple fanboys, the people who are just, are going to buy anything new in Apple. But also, if they deliver, something that answers this niche in the market, I think there are going to be people, well, you and I probably among them, after we save up, who would pay that kind of money, because think of the days, Steve. It wasn't all that long ago we were paying $2,000 for a desktop computer.
Yeah, you're right. There is a group that's used to paying that, but there's so much performance at the HP's notebooks and Lenovo and a lot of the other makers that have notebooks that are just so much less money. Now, granted, they don't have the Apple integration. They're certainly not designed like this one. This one has a whole new, it's got an entirely different feel. The entire architecture of it is completely reworked. It does have the solid state drive. It'll be interesting to see how Apple is. You know what? I would not be at all surprised to see it sell exceptionally well.
I think it'll sell, Steve. It just, it might not be the one you buy for your kids to go to university when you're watching your budget. It might, I can see a lot of people ask me what kind of computer I would buy or when they're buying a computer. And there's a whole kind of level of people looking for a laptop computer that would just completely put that one out the window because of the price. But
Well, yeah.
then there are people who are, use their computers all the time, not just for sending photos of their grandkids. And it's a real work machine.
Yep.
I think that it.
Oh, I could put it to work. I think that MacBook Air, the new MacBook Airs, or even the existing MacBook Air lineup, is just great for the kids in the university crowd. That 11-inch notebook that they can run around, take notes, do everything with, that hits in the sweet spot.
Yeah, $1,000. That's what you're going to. That's about what you would most you'd spend. I mean, you can get your kid a computer for $400 or $500, but if they might be agitating for an Apple, then you can get one for you can get the $1,000 version. They don't need all the bells and whistles.
They don't need the one Dad's getting. The other big announcement Apple had was they released. So, by the way, all of those computers that we've talked about are available shipping as of today. So we'll know very quickly how well they're being accepted by the churn rate that flows through off the top.
Well, Apple, that's right. And I had a lot of people asking me because, of course, as the product cycle, as it gets sort of the earlier version gets a bit long in the tooth, people are sitting on the sidelines, waiting to see what's new, waiting to buy. So I think there's going to be that pent up demand.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Apple also rolled out Mountain Lion, the official OS X Mountain Lion. They said there was 8 notable features. I kind of, again, with Mountain Lion and with all the operating systems, they get overshadowed in these sorts of events by the hardware. So the big news was definitely going to be the hardware. We're going to see a lot more iCloud integration. They've got their new apps, which is Messenger, Reminder, and Notes. Built-in dictation that even works in Microsoft Word. But we saw all this stuff as they put out beta versions of the software earlier. So there was nothing too exciting in the at least as far as I'm concerned, other than Apple is now narrowing in their focus a lot more on Dropbox with iCloud by adding the ability to store all of your documents online as well. But that ships next month for $19.99. I think a lot of people are going to upgrade. I don't know about you, but I wait for at least 1 or 2 bug fixes to come up before I bother upgrading my operating system.
Well, if I'm writing about it, I usually upgrade right away and take the chances.
But see, enough people like you write about it that I don't have to write about it. Yeah, I can just wait until it works, so it doesn't cause me a whole lot of trouble.
And as you know, Steve, I'm perfectly capable of glitching my computer on my own.
Well, you can break the most stable computer, Gillian.
I can. So I figure there are no upgrade glitches that can be worse than what I do to my own computer.
Continuing on the Apple's announcement was they also gave us our first real solid look at iOS 6, the operating system for iPhone, iPod Touches, and the iPad. Apple's finally making Siri available to us all, I think, regardless if we have a fairly new iOS device. So that is a bit of magic.
I don't know about you, Steve, but I was feeling a little bit of Canadian alienation here, that we couldn't really talk to Siri, or she didn't understand us. I mean, I've been driving along trying to get Siri to call up my favorite burrito place in Whistler and order up burritos while I've been on the drive, and really annoyed because
it doesn't work.
Siri, of course, doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't speak Canadian, eh?
Well, here's this. They actually announced new languages, and they said, and I'm not kidding, they said it'll now do Canadian.
Yeah.
They actually mentioned that in the conference. Now, whether that was a joke or not, or apparently they are going to understand about as opposed to a boot, or I think they say it about and that sort of stuff. Also Korean, Mandarin, and Cantonese. So it's they're definitely, their eye is to the north and to the east with the languages.
Well, Steve, with the languages, it's more than. I mean, of course, what the problem was with Canada too is that Siri didn't know our restaurants, didn't know our favorite coffee shops, and all that kind of stuff. So is the Canadian-speaking Siri going to be able to find me my Dups burritos in Whistler?
Unfortunately, you're not going to find out until the fall, because this was a whole lot of tempest in a pot of tea, I think, as well, because here they're telling us all of these great new features, and then they said, oh, but it's not going to come till the fall, which is a really long time in the world of technology.
It is.
As we'll be talking about in a minute.
Other talking apps are jumping in between meanwhile.
As well as other platforms. So we'll be talking about that in a few seconds. That's a teaser for the talking about the Samsung Galaxy coming up. One of the most glaring omissions that was existing in the iOS is going to be redressed with this, in the fact that we will now be able to use FaceTime on cellular networks, which is about time, because a lot of the cellular networks are faster than the Wi-Fi networks, especially if you're at a Starbucks. And the other news, it's kind of a breakup. It's sad. They were never really destined for long life together, but Google Maps is now out of the iOS, and Apple has their own mapping application that they're installing, and it looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, but those of us, that is kind of sad because you're used to Google Maps, and
I'm sure you'll be able to install it as an app still, or
you
use
just
it as a
install
preference.
install it as a separate, but it's been the default. So going to have some getting used to that. But sometimes Google Maps has been known to send you down one-way street back, one-way streets the wrong way and stuff. So we'll just see how Apple makes out.
There are issues. Now, they, unlike his predecessor, Tim Cook did not offer just one more thing at the very end of the keynote. The end, and it was the end, which is fine. But basically, a shiny new MacBook for us all to lust after right now, and that's the main thing. And I'm personally disappointed that a Retina iMac wasn't announced. I like my iMac. I still like the desktop computing environment. I enjoy using a nice big screen that's always there, and I was hoping that a Retina iMac might be announced, but alas, I have to wait for another year probably.
I know. Well, I think everybody. I have an iMac sitting on my kitchen counter. I think, like a lot of people, that I use it for a lot of things, not just reading recipes.
Yes.
But for it's great just as a standby kind of family computer and kind of center of the computer center for the house.
Now, it's ironic that the conference is the same day that you and I wanted to talk about this. You have one of these too in your hot little hands, do you not?
I have one of these. Can you see this?
No, you got the black one?
You can see. That's my
You
little.
got the white one. I got the black.
That's my headphone cord dangling. I'm actually wired in here, Steve. I have the white one, but
that's because it's I got the blue one.
Well, how did you get the blue one, Steve?
Because they said you want white or blue, Steve.
Oh,
so did they not?
And
ask
I was
you?
in the same place, and I was just handed.
You were there
the white
before
one.
me. You were there like an hour.
Without the power cord, but I got that great tip from you. Just take any
mini
USB charger, and charge it up.
So we are talking about Samsung's Galaxy 3, the hottest new smartphone that is soon to be available. It's available, I think, next week here in Canada. All the carriers carrying it at the same time, and this is the one that Apple doesn't like. This is the one that Apple's trying to get down the States, their Federal Trade Commission, to ban because, of course, it's a phone and Apple owns the concept of smartphones, I think. But basically, Apple doesn't want, they say it's too close to the iPhone in some ways. This is as far from an iPhone as I can imagine.
Do you think so? Well,
yeah.
It's got to be. It's kind of like imitation being the sincerest form of there's my white phone.
Yeah.
But I hear white is not as hot a color as the one that you've got.
The blue one?
Yeah, it's a blue one. That's going to be the one to get. But if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then Apple should be happy. But they're not, because they actually want the courts to stop Samsung from distributing its new Galaxy phone, which has got to tell you something about if they're that worried about it. This is probably a phone that's worth looking at if you're in the market for an Android phone.
And I think that if I was thinking about how I would recommend this to people, because it's an impressive phone. Let's say right out the get-go. It's got a 4.8-inch HD Super AMOLED display, which is absolutely spectacular. It has the same camera and same image processor as the iPhone 4S. Now, it doesn't have as good a software, but it's got the potential of, say, taking the same quality video and pictures as the 4S. It's thin. It's sleek. It's got a faster processor than most computers, probably than the computer that you're talking to me on now. It's got all of this built into it, and so it's going to be a superstar. But then I was thinking, who would I recommend this for? And the interesting thing is, if somebody doesn't know enough about tech that they want me to recommend a phone to them, I'm not going to recommend this phone. I'm going to tell them, get an iPhone, because I think the iPhone is the best integration, the easiest to use. However, having said that, if you know yourself and you're doing research yourself and you're a little bit of a geek, this phone is going to catch your attention, and it may be enough to make you say, I'm not going to go with an iPhone this time. I'm going to go with a Galaxy, because it does a lot.
Nice. See, here's the Flipboard. I don't exactly agree. I don't think you've got to be a real geek. I think there is, these Android, first of all, Apple's not the only game in town. Android is pretty interesting. Of course, a bit of an uphill battle for the Android folks with business because of worries over security, although Samsung tells us that they have solved that problem. And so it is good for the enterprise market as as the iPhone and the BlackBerry. So that would be a big thing. Of course, because with this whole move, Steve, to bringing your own technology to work, people may want to use an Android phone instead of a BlackBerry.
Yes.
And then the other thing is, of course, everybody can't afford that $2,000 new MacBook Pro, or maybe they don't even want to, buy the $1,000. They're just going to go with their PC, or they're happy with the PC. So the integration with the Android, and this Samsung has a lot of the same kind of integration that Apple has in its little walled garden.
Yep.
But in this case, it opens it up to more devices. Like you can mirror this to your HD TV,
Yep.
and you can send things back and forth just by touching
Yeah,
devices.
so if you've got two Samsung, like if Gillian and I were in the same room, we could touch our phones back to back, and there would be a connection. They would use near-field communications to create a connection. So if I had a photo up, it would transfer straight across, or my contact information. So that's some fairly interesting stuff. And with their Samsung All Play, you also have the ability to marry your phone, and I imagine it's using MAC addresses, similar stuff to what BlackBerry Messenger does, or BlackBerry does with their BlackBerry Messenger. You can get your devices connected. So if you have a Samsung TV, one of the new generations, and you have this phone, and you are in Mexico, and you take a picture, you can immediately share that picture. If you're on the Wi-Fi network down there, you can immediately share that picture with your TV set back home, providing the TV set is turned on. So that's some fairly cool technology they've built in.
Yeah, and it's a kind of stuff that you don't have to be using Apple to get. So,
and Samsung is the king of relationships with third-party vendors. They include 30 gigabytes of Dropbox with this, a Dropbox account with 30 gigabytes, which is tremendous.
Yeah, that I think, what does that give it to you for 2 years? But Dropbox is, I'm already a Dropbox user here. Dropbox is really handy, and especially when you're putting a lot of media on this phone that you may want to save and store, so you can put it straight to Dropbox. But of course, the other thing about storage, Steve, is this has expandable. I don't know whether I can pull off the back here.
I'm doing mine right now to show it to you.
Yeah.
So you don't worry about it. I'll do it.
Okay. Whoops, I have.
So there it is right there. This is another big difference with the Apple phone. I've just popped off the back. And look, the size of the battery. This phone is almost all battery, which is a good thing. But there's also two media card slots right here. Well, the SIM card and a media card slot, a micro SD card slot, so you can expand the memory. And, of course, you can replace the battery should it go caca.
Yeah, I like that expandable memory, Steve, because I am constantly, my iPhone gets filled up really quickly, and I download stuff, but then I don't bother erasing it off my iPhone, and then all of a sudden I'm at some really important event, like that will, a grad that'll never happen again or something, and that's it. My iPhone's full, and I'm scrambling to try to. So I like that idea that you can add a memory card, and increase your memory. I guess what can you get here?
Well, you can get
128 gigs, can't you?
I think so. I'm not too sure.
But
it's easy to find 16 at 20. It's easy to find 16 or 32 or 64 gig mini SD cards, fairly inexpensive, that will expand the memory in your storage a lot. And as I say, this is the same camera as is in the iPhone 4S, which is widely thought of as the best mobility-based platform camera on the market. Now, the software not quite as good. You mentioned
that's another thing that I tell people who are looking for a point-and-shoot camera. If you're also in the market for a new phone, just combine the two, because the iPhone camera and now and Samsung's camera, for your regular point-and-shoot, along with the apps that you can get to edit your photos.
Just tremendous.
That's pretty well all you need.
And for video too, they both do an excellent job at HD video. Now, you did mention one other thing which I glossed by, which is this is the first external relationship that Flipboard has had, other than with Apple. And so Flipboard is also available, which is one of my favorite ways of browsing websites and especially for blog sites. So it's how I read my news. It's how I keep up on tech news is Flipboard on my iPad. It looks pretty darn good on the Samsung as well.
Yeah, I don't know whether, if you don't have Flipboard on your, I have it on my iPad. If you don't have it on your tablet or your phone yet, it is a really elegant way to read your your news and blogs and whatever you follow online.
So bottom line, they've thrown down the gauntlet to Apple. Apple's going to have to come up with something pretty good to stay ahead. I'm not sure the 4S. I'm not sure it's better than the 4S, but it's in the same league for sure. Apple does not have a big lead anymore.
Well, and that leads to the next question. So, your predictions. I'm telling people that if they're in shopping for a new phone and they're interested in iPhones, to wait until the fall. But what's your word on that?
I have no idea. They have to. They're going to have to.
Yeah.
They're going to have to in order to remain competitive. Because this phone's darn good. And now I do think Samsung is the most serious competitor to Apple, and I think Samsung represents a death knell to RIM. So I think that Apple will have their eye on them. You can tell by the way that they're lining up their litigators and the lawsuits that are going back and forth with who everybody's acquiring. Is these two are going to go at it hammer and tong. Now the consumer should be the winner because it should just give us better and better devices. Now, I do like the overall integration of the Apple OS with I do use a desktop Mac. I think if I was not a Mac user, it would be a tough call for me to go with an iPhone right now.
Well, that's the thing, and you mentioned it before, Steve. They have, Apple is not going anywhere fast with its long-awaited Apple TV. I mean, there's the Apple TV box, but Samsung, on the other hand, does have its lineup of TVs out.
And they've got a strategy of how this is all integrating. It doesn't
Smart
excite
TVs,
me all that much.
Well,
but
smart
then I don't.
TVs with apps that integrate really well. So
at least they have a plan. At least they have a plan, and it's clear, and it's going to appeal to some people. It doesn't personally appeal to me an awful lot, but I also see the point, and I am also when I was told that I could share photos with the TV from when I'm traveling, I thought that is cool. I don't know if I would use it, but that is starting to show me the kind of integration that we should be looking for.
Oh yeah, and I just think we got to see what Apple is going to do to compete with this, but I think this is going to be a really popular phone, and Samsung seems to get it right. Even their kind of mid-sized tablet.
The Galaxy.
The Note,
tablet?
the Samsung Note that we looked at that. I thought that was great.
It is
a bit of an odd to be holding something that big to your ear, but still it's selling in that kind of niche market. So these guys know something about selling their devices.
Well, in the world where you use Bluetooth headsets more than we hold a phone to our ear, that the how ridiculous you look holding your phone to your ear should not be that big a deal.
Exactly.
I think we should wrap things up here, Gillian. You're of course Digital Life in the Vancouver Sun. I'm Steve Dotto. You can find my stuff at dottotech.com. What are we calling ourselves? Dotto and Shaw?
Dotto Shaw. Do you think people will think
Dotto
that's a Dotto Shaw?
We'll work on the name. Maybe
we'll work on the name. We'll have that for you the next
suggestions.
time.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we'll ask. We need a little crowdsourcing on the name here, Steve.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen. Add a logo. Gillian, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you next week.
Good talking to you.